The Stavanger Golf Club Mystery. For more than 14 years, a quiet and scenic golf course in Norway has been dealing with a mystery so bizarre that it has become legendary among staff and local players alike. Stavanger Golf Club, located along the calm waters of Hares, has been plagued by an unknown individual who repeatedly leaves human waste and soiled toilet paper at the bottom of selected golf holes. What began as a strange one-off discovery slowly evolved into a long-running puzzle that remains unresolved to this day. According to reports shared with local media, the unsettling discoveries began in 2005. Groundskeepers would arrive in the early mornings to prepare the course, only to find that certain cups had been deliberately used in a way no golfer would ever expect. Over time, a clear pattern emerged. The incidents occurred only on weekdays and always on the same handful of favored holes, suggesting a calculated routine rather than random behavior. Kenneth Tenford, a longtime groundskeeper at the club, explained that the size and consistency of the waste strongly indicated the individual was male. This detail, while unusual, helped narrow assumptions about the culprit without bringing the club any closer to an answer. Despite years of speculation, no golfer, staff member, or nearby resident has ever been caught in the act or identified as responsible. Efforts to stop the behavior only deepened the mystery. At one point, the club installed high-powered spotlights to illuminate the affected areas during the night. Instead of deterring the intruder, the lights were mysteriously disabled. Tenford later described how the individual appeared to have climbed a nearby tree, edged out onto a branch, and dismantled the equipment without injury, an act that left staff baffled and uneasy. Today, the case remains unsolved. No suspects have been named, no confessions have surfaced, and the identity of the serial offender remains unknown. What persists is a strange chapter in the history of an otherwise peaceful golf course, proving that some mysteries can be as perplexing as they are unexpected. The Mystery of Cap Dewa. Across human history, stories of giants have appeared again and again, echoing through myth, folklore, and early exploration accounts. From the titans of ancient Greece to the towering beings of Norse legend, and from the Chinese creator giant Pangu to the biblical figure of Goliath, the idea of humans of extraordinary size has long fascinated the imagination. Among these enduring legends stands one of the strangest and most controversial figures of all, the Patagonian two-headed giant known as Cap Dewa. Cap Dewa is said to have been a colossal being, measuring roughly 12 feet in height, possessing not one, but two fully formed heads joined to a single body. Unlike purely mythical giants, Cap Dewa is claimed to have physically existed, with a preserved body that eventually appeared in exhibitions in Britain and later the United States, including a museum display in Baltimore, Maryland. The existence of such a being challenges conventional understanding, yet it also intersects with known medical phenomena. Dicephagus, an extremely rare form of conjoined twinning in which two heads develop on one torso, is a documented condition. While incredibly uncommon, it demonstrates that the physical structure attributed to Cap Dewa is not entirely outside biological possibility. The legend of giants in Patagonia predates Cap Dewa by centuries. When explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his crew reached the southern regions of South America, they recorded encounters with native people they described as enormous in stature. These accounts likely stemmed from encounters with the Tehuelche people, who were notably taller than the average European of the time. Over repeated retellings, this height difference grew into exaggerated tales of giants, cementing Patagonia's reputation as a land of towering beings. Within this cultural backdrop, the story of Cap Dewa began to take shape. There are two primary narratives describing how Cap Dewa entered recorded history. The first claims that Spanish sailors encountered the giant on the Patagonian coast around 1673. According to this account, the sailors restrained him aboard their vessel. During a struggle, he was seriously injured by a long weapon that pierced his chest, and his body was later preserved. Many years afterward, the remains allegedly traveled through Europe before reaching sideshow exhibitions in the 19th century, where they were displayed as a marvel from a distant land. The second version of events presents a different origin. In this telling, Cap Dewa was discovered already lifeless on a shoreline, having suffered a severe chest wound. Local inhabitants reportedly preserved the body and incorporated it into spiritual traditions. Later, a British sea captain named George Bickle is said to have learned of the preserved giant, taken possession of it, and transported it back to Britain. From there, it followed a similar path into public exhibitions and private collections. In both accounts, Cap Dewa eventually became part of the world of curiosities, displayed alongside other unusual artifacts that blurred the line between science and spectacle. This association has fueled skepticism, particularly because showmen of the era were known to fabricate elaborate hoaxes. However, the enduring consistency of Cap Dewa's physical description, combined with medical knowledge confirming the possibility of two-headed individuals, leaves room for belief. Whether Cap Dewa was an extraordinary human born with a rare condition, a member of an unusually tall population, or something even more unusual, the mystery remains unresolved. Mysterious man floating at sea. A mysterious video circulating across social media has left viewers puzzled after showing an unidentified man calmly floating in the open ocean while standing on what appears to be a turtle-shaped object. The footage shows the man upright and steady, surrounded by water in every direction with no visible boats, land, or safety equipment nearby. The scene feels surreal, almost dreamlike, as the man appears completely at ease despite the unlikely circumstances. What makes the incident even more unsettling is that the man has been observed in multiple recordings, suggesting this was not a single fleeting moment. In each clip, his posture remains relaxed, his movements minimal, and his balance remarkably steady. He does not wave for help or attempt to draw attention to himself, which has led many to believe that this situation was intentional rather than accidental. His clothing is simple and unremarkable, offering no clues as to his identity or purpose. While some viewers have suggested that the turtle-shaped object may be a large molded structure or floating platform, this explanation only deepens the mystery. Even if the object is artificial, questions remain about how the man came to be floating so far from shore, how long he has been there, and how he sustains himself. There is no visible propulsion, anchor, or tether connecting him to anything else. The calmness of the man stands in stark contrast to the vast and unpredictable nature of the ocean around him. This contrast has fueled speculation across social media, with many people expressing a sense of unease rather than fear. The image evokes the feeling of encountering something out of place, something that does not follow expected rules. As of now, no verified information has surfaced regarding the man's identity or his intentions. The footage remains unexplained, and the mystery continues to drift across the internet, much like the solitary figure floating silently at sea. The mysterious Nemi ships. The mystery of the Nemi ships stands as one of the most remarkable revelations in the study of ancient engineering and continues to challenge long-held assumptions about the technological limits of the Roman world. Discovered beneath the calm waters of Lake Nemi near Rome in the early 20th century, these vessels revealed a level of sophistication that many historians had once believed impossible for their era. The two ships were constructed during the 1st century AD under the direction of the Roman Emperor Caligula. Rather than serving as military or commercial vessels, they functioned as floating palaces designed purely for luxury, ceremony, and personal use. The larger of the two ships measured more than 70 meters in length, making it one of the largest ancient vessels ever confirmed. Its sheer size alone forced scholars to reconsider earlier beliefs that Roman shipbuilding was limited to modest coastal craft. What made the Nemi ships truly extraordinary was not only their scale, but their advanced amenities. Both vessels featured marble columns, elaborate mosaic floors, and finely crafted decorative elements more commonly associated with imperial villas than ships. Even more astonishing was the presence of complex heating systems. The ships were built with hypocausts, an underfloor heating method that allowed warm air to circulate beneath the floors, maintaining comfortable interior temperatures. This system, typically used in Roman bathhouses and villas, had been expertly adapted for use on water. In addition to the hypocausts, the ships contained furnaces and boilers capable of heating water for baths and warming enclosed spaces. These features demonstrated not only technical mastery, but also a deep understanding of engineering principles such as airflow, insulation, and structural balance. The fact that such systems functioned on floating platforms highlights the ingenuity of Roman designers and their willingness to experiment beyond conventional limits. Following Caligula's passing, the ships were deliberately scuttled and left beneath the lake's surface, where they remained preserved for nearly 2,000 years. Their recovery in the 1920s and subsequent raising in the 1930s stunned the academic world. A dedicated museum was built to house them, allowing the public to witness firsthand the scale and elegance of these ancient creations. Sadly, both ships were lost during the turmoil of World War II, leaving only fragments and detailed records behind. Despite their physical loss, the impact of the Nemi ships endures. Their discovery forced historians and researchers to acknowledge that earlier assessments of Roman technological capability had been deeply flawed. For generations, scholars had dismissed the idea that the Romans could construct such vast and complex vessels. The Nemi ships proved otherwise, prompting a reevaluation of what ancient civilizations were capable of achieving. Today, the Nemi ships remain symbols of human creativity, ambition, and forgotten knowledge. The mysterious cylindrical UFO over Manhattan. On the evening associated with the 20th of March, 1950, a single photograph taken over New York City would go on to become one of the most controversial and enduring images in the history of unidentified flying objects. Captured during the transitional hours of dusk, the image shows a luminous cylindrical object suspended against a darkening sky, its form sharply defined and unlike any known celestial body or conventional aircraft of the era. Though officially dismissed by military investigators at the time, the photograph has continued to provoke debate for decades, standing as a powerful symbol of the tension between eyewitness testimony, photographic evidence, and institutional explanations. The photograph was taken from the Queensboro Bridge by a professional photographer working for Underhill Studio, a respected New York-based firm known for architectural and commercial work. The photographer, widely believed to be Irving Underhill, was experienced, technically proficient, and familiar with the limitations and behaviors of photographic film. His insistence is significant as it came from someone whose livelihood depended on precision, accuracy, and credibility. When the image was later examined by the United States Air Force under Project Grudge, the predecessor to Project Blue Book, it was officially classified as a nocturnal light and ultimately labeled as the moon. Investigators claimed the object's elongated appearance was the result of the moon's declination combined with a long exposure. However, this explanation raised immediate concerns among researchers, especially when examined against astronomical data and the physical characteristics visible in the photograph itself. One of the most troubling aspects of the official explanation lies in the discrepancy surrounding the date. The photographer reportedly stated that the image was taken on the 20th of May, 1950, yet Air Force records list the event as having occurred on the 20th of March. No supporting documentation has ever been produced to justify this change, nor has there been any clear explanation as to why the date would be altered in official files. This inconsistency alone has fueled speculation that the investigation may not have been conducted with full transparency. Astronomical analysis further complicates the moon explanation. On the 20th of March, 1950, the waxing crescent moon was visible for only a limited window before dropping below the horizon. Its position, curvature, and illumination do not align with the object captured in the photograph. The enlarged image shows a concave edge oriented downward toward the horizon, a configuration that does not match the moon's appearance on that date. Additionally, the Air Force stated that the photograph was taken between 1730 and 1800 hours, yet sunset did not occur until 1806, and there were no daylight saving adjustments in effect that year. These details introduce serious doubt regarding the timing and conditions described in the official report. Equally compelling is the physical appearance of the object itself. Unlike a blurred or streak, the photographed shape appears solid, structured, and uniform, with subtle gradations of light and shadow along its surface. The cylindrical form lacks the curvature expected of the moon and instead resembles a rigid, engineered object. This has led many ufologists to classify it as an early example of what later became known as cigar-shaped or tubular unidentified flying objects, a category that would see a surge in reports throughout the early 1950s. Some researchers have gone further, suggesting that such objects may represent large carrier craft, sometimes referred to as motherships, capable of transporting and deploying smaller aerial vehicles. While this idea remains speculative, it is supported by the sheer scale implied by the photograph and by similar descriptions found in contemporaneous sightings across the United States and Europe. During this period, reports of elongated, silent objects moving steadily through the sky became increasingly common, often defying conventional explanations. The handling of the Underhill photograph must also be viewed within the broader context of Project Grudge itself. Edward J. Ruppelt, a former head of Project Blue Book, later wrote candidly about the investigative culture that preceded his tenure. In his book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, published in 1956, Ruppelt stated that Grudge operated under the assumption that unidentified flying objects could not exist. Its primary objective, he explained, was not to understand or investigate anomalies, but to explain them away as quickly as possible. According to Ruppelt, standard intelligence procedures were abandoned in favor of predetermined conclusions. This institutional bias is crucial when evaluating the dismissal of the Underhill photograph. Rather than engaging with the inconsistencies, investigators appeared to select an explanation that fit their mandate, even if it conflicted with observable data. The deletion of the photographer's name from the declassified files further deepens the mystery. While it is true that many names were removed during declassification, the absence of such a key witness limits independent verification and raises questions about what other information may have been withheld. Despite official efforts to minimize its significance, the Underhill photograph has endured as a point of reference within the study of unidentified aerial phenomena. It represents a moment in time when photographic evidence intersected with a rapidly evolving public awareness of unexplained objects in the sky. The early 1950s marked the beginning of what is often called the modern UFO era, a period characterized by increased sightings, growing media attention, and heightened military interest. What makes this photograph particularly compelling is not just the object it depicts, but the chain of events that followed its discovery. The conflicting dates, the questionable astronomical explanation, the professional background of the photographer, and the broader climate of dismissal all contribute to a narrative that feels incomplete. Rather than resolving the mystery, the official conclusion appears to have deepened it. Over 70 years later, the image remains a subject of analysis, discussion, and debate. Image processing and astronomical modeling have only strengthened the argument that the moon explanation fails to account for the object's form and orientation. For many researchers, the photograph stands as evidence that not all unexplained sightings can be neatly categorized or dismissed without consequence. As of right now, the 1950 New York City cylindrical object photograph serves as a reminder that some mysteries resist closure. Whether viewed as proof of advanced technology, a non-human craft, or something entirely unknown, its legacy lies in its ability to challenge assumptions and expose the limitations of official narratives. The Strange Case of Park Ranger Randy Morganson. Over 250,000 individuals are reported missing every year, with estimates of actual missing persons cases that are left unreported, pushing that total to more than an expected 300,000 cases annually. With that many reports, it is no wonder that a vast majority of these cases are left unsolved. However, every now and then there are a series of missing cases that emerge that are so peculiar they become the subject of impossible-to-explain theories. Known as the Missing 411, there appears to be a substantial number of missing persons cases relating to the disappearances of individuals from national parks. In fact, many of these cases are believed to not be investigated too deeply, as some form of supernatural or paranormal cover-up takes place in these undisturbed locations. Randy Morgenson was considered to be one of the most experienced search and rescue rangers who spent more than 28 years working for the Sequoia National Park and the Kings National Park when he suddenly went missing under suspicious circumstances on the 21st of July back in 1996. According to the official Missing Persons Report, the disappearance of Randy Morgenson has been officially explained as a possible purposeful attempt made by the ranger to either fake his own passing or to leave this world prematurely. Oddly enough, however, the details surrounding this case appear to tell a different story and seem to be difficult for fellow search and rescue rangers to adequately explain. To provide some context into Randy's life, ever since a young age, Randy Morgenson had been obsessed with the outdoors. His love for nature and obsession with the wilderness would lead him to sign up and work as a backcountry ranger for the Sequoia and Kings National Park every year for the next 28 years. Being a backcountry ranger came with very little perks and even less impressive pay. According to Randy, despite being one of the most senior rangers of the area, every year he was required to reapply for the position and was unable to receive medical benefits, a retirement plan, or any insurance protection outside of a $100,000 life insurance payout to his family in the event that he passed away while working out in the national parks. The lack of benefits or future financial prospects, however, did not prevent Randy from returning every year to the national parks to work as a backcountry ranger, later describing the primary benefit of his job as being able to be paid in sunsets. Unlike the average person, Randy Morgenson loved long stretches of solitude out in the wilderness and believed that he had become hypnotized by the beauty of the surrounding landscape, making him unable to leave his position as a ranger despite the financial hardships it caused him year after year. It was back in 1973 that Randy Morgenson would write in his McClure Meadow logbook a short philosophy to living life wild and free that would capture his personality the best. All of your life, someone is pointing the way, directing you this way and that, determining for you which road is best traveled. Here is your chance to be adventuresome. Don't forever seek the easiest way. Take the way you find. Don't demand trail signs and sturdy bridges. Don't demand we show you the mountains. Seek them and find them yourself. This is your birthright as an animal, most commonly denied you. Be free enough from intentions to find goodness wherever you are and in whatever is happening. Here, for once in your life, you can now live by whim. Here's your one chance to get lost, fall in the creek, find a beautiful place. To his fellow co-workers, it became obvious that Randy Morgenson was becoming increasingly dissatisfied with a civilized life. According to another ranger, Randy would often refer to national park tourists as swinus americanus, a pseudo-Latin term translation to mean American pigs, in reference to the amount of trash he would often have to pick up after tourists would visit a location. Over the years, Randy would invent a series of terms that helped to represent his anger towards tourists and their behavior in the area, referring to their activities as backpacker detritus and often engaging in direct altercations with the more progressive visitors in the area. After 28 years working for the National Park Service and becoming one of the most experienced search and rescue rangers of the region, colleagues would remark that Randy Morgenson appeared to have been depressed and stuck in a hypnotic state, often making comments that compared himself to the Tao poem, The Wanderer, who remains alone in disappointment while others are happy as if celebrating a sacrificial feast.
About his regrets and his life, a fellow ranger of only 2 years in the area, a man by the name of Rick Sanger, would later remark that Randy made several comments asking if he thought that spending the last 3 decades working as a ranger for the national parks was worth it, and whether or not he had wasted his life. Soon thereafter, fellow rangers would learn that Randy Morganson had had an affair with a fellow ranger by the name of Low Linus, causing his wife, Judy Morganson, to file divorce papers. Randy's colleagues had grown familiar with Judy, as she would often spend many years joining Randy for his work and traveling out into the national parks. However, towards 1996, Randy's wife was no longer showing up to join Randy in his interest, and within a few years, Randy would become entangled with Linus, a colleague who was often his only point of contact out in the national park wilderness. On the 20th of July, 1996, while working in a remote location, Randy Morganson would radio his wife and a colleague several times throughout the day and night, and seemed to have been mentally distracted. According to the wife, she would later provide a statement saying that she believed Randy had been lonely and was only trying to make small talk to help calm his nerves. After several hours of radioing in, it appeared that Randy and his wife may have gotten into an argument, which would lead to Randy abruptly ending the conversation saying, "I won't be bothering you two anymore." At the time of the calls, the colleague and wife just thought that Randy was getting ready to go to bed. On the 25th of July, 1996, Randy Morganson was reported missing as he had failed to check in after several days of radio calls. Although it is typically very common for Randy to miss his check-in calls, as he was known for taking short camping trips throughout the area, fellow ranger Rick Sanger believed that the 5 days of disappearance was uncharacteristic of Randy. Once the investigation was underway, search and rescue volunteers and fellow rangers discovered a note within his tent dated on the 21st, claiming that he was planning on going camping for 2 or 3 days and should return on the 23rd or 24th of the month. The discovery of the note would lead to one of the most intense search and rescue operations ever recorded from the Sequoia National Park, given the fact that the rangers were searching for one of their own. By the 25th of July, 1996, more than 100 volunteers were covering an 80-square-mile search grid, hoping to locate Randy by searching in locations he had been known to frequent. What seemed to have been most bizarre for the search and rescue teams was the fact that Morganson was one of the most experienced outdoorsmen of the entire park and was known for carrying several redundancies in equipment, including a radio that he should have been able to use to pick up any incoming signals. After several days of searching for Randy and unable to find any signs of the missing ranger, colleagues began to speculate that perhaps Randy was attempting to fake his own passing so that his wife could cash in the $100,000 life insurance policy, as he had been complaining of financial issues over the past few weeks prior to his disappearance. These statements and speculations would lead the national park to hire a special private investigator who would look into Randy's bank statements and would find that since his disappearance, no activity was recorded for any of his accounts. Additionally, Randy's vehicle was still left parked nearby where Morganson would typically leave his vehicle while he was working. Over the next following days, the search for Randy appeared to take bizarre turns as the use of search and rescue canines were used that seemed to find Randy's scent, only for it to disappear and reappear in vastly different areas. The dogs would also help to turn up several pieces of equipment used by Randy that appeared to have been scattered several miles from each other in random directions, as if pieces of the ranger's equipment were thrown randomly throughout the entire national park. Even more peculiar, as the search was underway and a helicopter equipped with infrared thermal cameras was used in the area, the helicopter suddenly picked up a random campfire atop one of the mountains Randy was known for frequenting. Immediately, search and rescue volunteers went to the campsite and found equipment they believed linked Randy to the area, but noticed that the site appeared to have been abandoned for several days, and the campfire seemed to have been burning while completely unattended. Oddly enough, marked and dated 2 days after Randy's disappearance, Randy's wife, Judy Morganson, would receive a letter from Randy that would arrive a week after the postmark date at their home in Sedona, Arizona. Investigators were unable to explain the sudden letter, as the national park did not have a postal service of any kind, and Randy's vehicle had not been moved from its location for several weeks prior to his disappearance. The letter, however, would add to the suspicion that Randy had faked his own death and used his disappearance to ensure his wife could collect the $100,000 life insurance. 13 days following Randy's disappearance. The search efforts would come to a standstill, and Randy Morganson, one of the most experienced outdoorsmen and rangers of the national park, was assumed to have passed away sometime in July of 1996. No sign of Randy was ever recovered, not even a footprint. Several years later, sometime in July of 2001, almost exactly 5 years after Randy's disappearance, a young 19-year-old boy working with the California Conservation Corps trail building crew traveled off-trail and came across a tattered shirt pinned with Randy Morganson's ranger badge. Without hesitation, a team of search and rescue rangers traveled to the area and soon located the remains of Randy Morganson, including a backpack with the buckles still fastened, a boot that had a protruding leg bone still in it, and a functioning park-issue radio that matched the gear that Randy had been using. Upon closer examination, rangers remarked that Randy's radio appeared to have been left in the on position, as if he had attempted to make contact with fellow rangers but was unable for some reason. Even more difficult to explain, the location where Randy's remains were discovered had been searched thoroughly several times by the park rangers, who marked the areas off several times by computer, but had not recovered any sign of Randy in the area. The mysterious origins of Greek fire. The mystery of Greek fire remains one of the most enduring mysteries of medieval history, a weapon so effective and so feared that it altered the balance of power for centuries, while leaving almost no trace of its true nature behind. Used by the Byzantine Empire from approximately the 7th century through the 12th century, Greek fire was an incendiary substance that gave Byzantine forces a decisive advantage against enemies both on land and at sea. What set Greek fire apart from other weapons of its time was not only its destructive potential, but its seemingly unnatural behavior. Contemporary accounts consistently describe a liquid flame that clung to surfaces, spread rapidly, and continued to burn even when it came into contact with water. Unlike conventional fire, which could often be subdued by dousing or smothering, Greek fire appeared to resist such efforts, sometimes intensifying when water was applied. This alone contributed to its terrifying reputation among opposing fleets and armies. Greek fire was most famously deployed through a device known as a siphon, which functioned much like an early flamethrower. Mounted on ships or defensive walls, these siphons allowed operators to project a stream of blazing liquid toward enemy vessels. In other cases, the substance was sealed inside jars or pots and hurled at targets, where it shattered on impact and released its contents. The psychological effect of witnessing fire erupt across the surface of the sea was often just as powerful as the physical damage it caused. The exact composition of Greek fire remains unknown, as the formula was treated as a state secret and passed down through tightly controlled channels. No surviving written instructions or recipes have ever been found. Byzantine authorities understood that the power of the weapon depended as much on secrecy as on chemistry, and they took extraordinary measures to ensure that knowledge of its creation never fell into enemy hands. Over time, this secrecy worked too well, and the knowledge gradually vanished within the empire itself. Despite the absence of a confirmed formula, historians have identified several consistent characteristics of Greek fire based on eyewitness descriptions. It was a liquid incendiary that could be projected or thrown, adhered to ships and armor, and resisted extinguishing efforts. It burned on water, spread quickly, and created widespread panic, often disrupting enemy formations before physical confrontation even began. These qualities made it especially effective in naval engagements, where confined spaces and wooden vessels amplified its impact. Greek fire played a crucial role in the survival of the Byzantine Empire during repeated sieges and invasions, particularly against Arab and Viking forces. Its presence alone could deter attacks, as enemy commanders knew they faced a weapon unlike any other. Yet by the 14th century, Greek fire had disappeared from recorded use, its formula lost to time. Today, Greek fire stands as a symbol of forgotten knowledge and advanced ingenuity. The strange case of Aaron Hedges. The disappearance of Aaron Hedges remains one of the most unsettling wilderness mysteries to emerge from the rugged landscape of Montana's crazy mountains. An experienced outdoorsman from Bozeman, Aaron was well versed in hunting, navigation, and survival, which only deepens the confusion surrounding the events that unfolded in early September 2014. Aaron traveled into the crazy mountains with close friends Joe Dew and Greg Leitner, intending to spend a week hunting near the Cottonwood Trailhead and establishing a base camp at Campfire Lake. The group was well equipped, bringing 2 horses and a mule to carry supplies. Aaron carried a bow, arrows, and a sidearm, while his companions carried rifles. Their preparations suggested confidence and familiarity with the terrain, and there was no indication that the trip would deviate from plan. Early in the journey,
however, an unexpected setback occurred when the mule became spooked and scattered much of their gear down a steep section of trail. Among the lost items was Aaron's sleeping bag, a critical piece of equipment in the unpredictable mountain climate. Several days later, on the 5th of September, Aaron decided to travel alone to retrieve a replacement sleeping bag from a cache left at a previous hunting camp. Though his friends urged him to return before nightfall due to the dangers of the area after dark, Aaron agreed and set off with the intention of returning the same day. That evening, Aaron did not return. By late afternoon, Joe and Greg attempted to reach him using Garmin walkie-talkies, which displayed GPS locations. To their surprise, Aaron's position showed him traveling in the wrong direction, moving northeast rather than toward the intended camp. Shortly afterward, his signal vanished completely. This marked the final confirmed trace of Aaron's movements. When Aaron failed to return on the 6th of September, concern grew, especially as a powerful snowstorm swept through the region on the 7th, depositing roughly 18 inches of snow and plunging temperatures. Despite this, Aaron was not reported missing until the 8th of September, when his wife contacted authorities. Search coordinators later noted that this delay was unusual, particularly given the weather conditions. Search and rescue operations were severely hampered by the storm, but once conditions allowed, extensive efforts were launched. Teams on foot and horseback, search dogs, helicopters, National Guard units, and dozens of volunteers scoured the area. On the 9th of September, a troubling discovery was made. Aaron's boots, a water container, and a fire pit were found in a location that had reportedly been searched the previous day. The discovery raised immediate concerns, as it made little sense for Aaron to remove his boots in such cold conditions or to remain stationary without them. For weeks, no further evidence emerged. The search presence was reduced on the 22nd of September due to lack of new leads. Nearly a year later, in 2015, a backpack containing Aaron's identification, weapon, bow, and clothing was discovered by a family visiting the area. The bag showed signs of animal interference, yet its contents remained largely intact. The final development came on the 8th of August in 2016, when a human skull was found near a ranch close to where Aaron had last been tracked. A focused search uncovered most of his remains within a 70-yard area. His mobile phone was recovered, but had deteriorated beyond use. The mystery persists due to several unanswered elements. Aaron's route made little sense for someone with his experience. His choice to leave essential footwear, his proximity to visible buildings and roads, and his apparent avoidance of seeking help all contradict survival instincts. While theories exist, the disappearance of Aaron Hedges continues to challenge understanding, standing as a haunting reminder of how even the most experienced can vanish into the wilderness without explanation.